the beacon for the nation. This program is suitable for general viewing.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A very good morning to everyone who's watching. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Horizon TV. This is the Muslim Insight, the show that brings you your weekly news recap as well as the review of today's Friday Bulletin. Joining me later on studio for that will be Sheikh Salim Charo. My name is Nadia Osman and my sign language interpreter is Ilhan Noor. Before we first get into the topic and the news for the day, first let's give you the headlines.
The whole masjid was made with donations from the railway employees. Very few donors came from outside, but most of the railway workers, they were giving their monthly donations which were put together into the construction of the masjid.
Another national monument. Landi's Mosque declared a national monument by the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage.
Assuming that an husband or a father has gone to the police station to report that the wife has hit him with something or has slapped her, you see at the OB, they will laugh.
Men as victims. Men facing gender-based violence suffer in silence due to stigma. Refugees and host communities. Governor calls for speedy implementation of the Garissa Integrated Socio-Economic Development Plan.
Now, on our top story, Kenya joined the world in marking the International Day of the Victims of Enforced Disappearances, which is commemorated all over the world on 30th of August each year, to stand in solidarity with men and women who have been unlawfully arrested, detained and have never been seen again. Speaking during an event held at the Kiamaiko Social Justice Center in Nairobi, Amnesty International Executive Director Irungu Houghton said extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances are one of the most terrifying trends experienced in Kenya for the longest period, and it is time to end the vice.
My greatest joy when I come to communities to talk about human rights is to meet police officers who speak like human rights defenders. Because to be honest, we can actually close down Amnesty if 110,000 police officers believed in human rights and they protected human rights, isn't it? Yeah. We could close Amnesty. So we must continue to remind them that it is human rights that is at the basis, it is at the center of their responsibility to Kenyans. The International Day of the Disappeared, we have an obligation to reach out to them to say that it is not possible under our constitution, even if we know it is happening. It is not acceptable under our constitution for people to disappear for 2 or 3 days. It is not possible under our constitution for 450 people to disappear in Shakahola. It is not possible for people up to 30, 40 people to float down rivers in this republic if we have a constitution that lives and breathes. So the question we also have to ask ourselves is, why is this not happening? What do we need to do as citizens to keep each other safe? If you know the Kenyan history, you will know that enforced disappearances, unfortunately, have been there for over 100 years. We will continue to speak fearlessly on this issue because we know that it is in our history, it is in the struggle to stop disappearances and arbitrary detentions that we created a country and a constitution that is looked at from across the world with respect.
Thank you for that. Now moving on. Jamia Mosque railway land is situated on the intersection of Landis and Pumwani roads in Starehe constituency in Nairobi County has been declared a national monument. The government, through the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage, in a Gazette notice dated 27th July 2023, declared Jamia Mosque railway Landis a mosque that was built by the railways workers in the early 1900s, a national monument. The Landis Mosque has a capacity over 1,000 worshippers.
In 1899, when the railway line reached Nairobi, two mosques of mabati structure were constructed near the railway station in Mudhura area. One of the mosques, constructed from the material obtained from the dismantled mosque at Kilindini, Mombasa, came to be known as the Jamia Mosque Railway Landis.
Our forefathers, who were employees of the railway, came here, migrated here in the early 1910s, 1920s, some even in the late 1800s. And being staunch Muslims, they were never far from their religion. So wherever they set up a base, the first thing they would do is to set up a masjid and a madrasa so that their children could go on and with the education.
The Landis Mosque, which is run by Al Mumin Foundation and now stands as a historical landmark in the country, was built by the Asian migrants who built mosques along the railway lines wherever they settled.
The Landis Masjid actually started in the early 1900s when the railway reached Nairobi. Initial railway line was laid from Mombasa till Nairobi, and in Nairobi they came to rest for some time before they proceeded up country. And initially what they did was they had demolished a mosque in Mombasa, I think in the old town. It was a tin mosque which was demolished, and it was brought and erected in present day Muthurwa. The only thing that I'll add over there is that the whole masjid was made with donations from the railway employees. Very few donors came from outside, but most of the railway workers, they were giving their monthly donations, which were put together into the construction of the masjid.
Speaking to the Muslim Inside, Al Mumin Foundation Vice Chairman Manib Chaudhry said they are happy as committee members that Landis Mosque will join over the 300 gazetted monuments in Kenya.
They do not gazette anything below 50 years old. So once the 50-60 years had finished, we applied for a gazettement with the Kenya National Museums of Kenya. And it has been a very long process, and finally we are very glad that they have gazetted the Jamia Masjid as a national monument, and hopefully the minister will put his pen onto paper and give us the good news very soon.
In an interview with Horizon TV, the Imam of Landis Mosque for over 20 years now says he is pleased to see the mosque recognized as a national monument, noting that it was the first mosque in the country to start Quran competitions.
Nimekuwa katika msikiti wa Landis kwa muda mrefu, kuanzia kwa muda wa miaka 20, from 1999 mpaka leo. Msikiti wa Landis ni mmoja katika misikiti ya zamani sana hapa Kenya. Imejengwa na ndugu zetu waliokuja kutoka Pakistan, kutoka India, wakija kujenga railway katika mchango wao wa taifa la Kenya. Wakajenga railway mpaka Nairobi, na ndio maana ukaitwa msikiti railway Landis Mosque.
On Friday, Cabinet Secretary Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage, Penina Malonza, through a Gazette notice dated July 27, announced Jamia Mosque Railway Landis as a national monument. The Gazette notice read, and I quote, "In exercise of the power conferred by Section 25(1)(b) of the National Museums and Heritage Act, the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage declares all that structure known as Jamia Mosque Railway Landis, situated on the intersection of Landis and Pumwani roads in Starehe constituency, Nairobi County, which she considers to be of architectural, historical and social cultural interest, to be a national monument within the meaning of the Act."
We are very glad that the process of the gazettement of the Landis Masjid has finally come through, and hopefully inshallah there will be no objections from any public sector in the next 60 days, and looking forward to the final gazette notice from the CS, inshallah.
Al Momin Foundation leadership is confident that the mosque will finally get the status it deserves.
The architecture and the construction of the masjid was done keeping in line with the Mughlahi architectural design. If you look at the photographs, or if you've had a chance to visit the masjid yourself, you'll see that the arches and the floral patterns created on it have been done initially during the construction, and the painting was done on the dome inside the masjid. It's only been done once, it's never been repainted. The forefathers who actually did the construction, they did a very permanent solution to it, which does not have to be repeated every year or so.
Lantis Mosque, which lies on approximately 1.3 acres of land, has several projects across the country, including madrasas, mosques, and schools under its name. Reporting for the Muslim Inside, I'm Nadia Osman.
Thank you for that report, Lena. Now moving on, the government has set plans to abolish the National Hospital Insurance Fund that will enable the country attain the universal health care. The cabinet, following a meeting presided over by President William Ruto in Kakamega on Tuesday, approved 3 bills that will see NHIF replaced with 3 funds: the Primary Health Care Fund, the Social Health Insurance Fund, and Emergency Chronic and Critical Illness Fund. According to State House, the bills will include a Primary Healthcare Bill 2023, Digital Health Bill 2023, Facility Improvement Financing Bill 2023, and Social Health Insurance Bill 2023 will be transmitted to Parliament for approval. According to the Cabinet Dispatch, the Digital Health Bill will enable the development of standards towards the provision of mHealth, telemedicine, and e-learning in healthcare. National Health Insurance Fund is a state parastatal that was established in 1966, a department under the Ministry of Health. The original Act of Parliament that set up this fund in 1966 has over the years been reviewed to accommodate the changing healthcare needs of the Kenyan population. Employment and restructuring in the health sector, women empowerment, Thank you for that. And now, women in Wajir County are beating their way through poverty, out of poverty rather. In 2016, a group of women started Wako Weavers Society, a women's group specializing in beading and decoration. The beadwork industry in Kenya is growing at a rapid speed, which led Safia Bilo Mohamud, Wako Weavers Society's Secretary General, to organize women and venture into beadwork to break boredom and overspendence on their husbands.
The beadwork is now a hotspot for revenue for many women in Kenya. Many women groups have taken different initiatives to transform their lives and earn a living, and this is no different for women from Wajir County.
We were able to give them starter kits. That is, we gave them tents for hire. We also gave them 50 chairs. We also give them a public address. They normally hire and generate income out of that. They do grocery, they do clothes making, different activities that will help them generate income at the end of the day and able to save money and for the circle.
group tulianza, tunataka tu hii group tuwe na group kubwa, alafu tutengeneze kitu, tuwe na jina mzuri para Wako Weaver Society. Hata kama tunatarajia awe company, lakini bado tunasukuma tu, bado hatujafika kiwango, lakini tunajaribu kuendelea vizuri. Soko ndio mbaya, hizi vitu naye ni ngumu kutengeneza, lakini sisi tunajaribu, lakini soko ndio kuna. Tungependa muweke kwa websites ili kwa soko ijulikane na watu tupate order mzuri.
As county government, our mandate is to make sure these cooperatives do their work according to the set bylaws. They were registered as cooperative in the year 2018.
Thank you for that empowering report, Mariam. Now, Garissa Governor, His Excellency Nadia Osman, has called for the hastening of the launch and implementation of the Garissa Integrated Socio-Economic Development Plan. The Garissa Integrated Social-Economic Development is a plan for integrating refugees into the host community through providing adequate access to land, urban services, housing and infrastructure. The plan will also promote the economic growth of Dadaab through alternative sustainable livelihoods and increased financial access.
Governor Jama said the county government wants the national government and UNHCR to move quickly and launch Garissa Integrated Socio-Economic Development Plan, saying continued delay was denying the refugees and the host community in Garissa their rightful resources for development.
So we are prepared and we're trying to move forward to ensure that we now benefit after all this sacrifice. And as we said now that there is a wind of change, there is goodness is coming on board, there is funding, the World Bank, from the Kenya government, from other places, from development partners. Now let's be prepared and ready and benefit our people, both the locals or the host community and the refugees. Where is the problem? Why is Garissa being handled in a lukewarm manner? Who is after stopping the progress of Garissa? Why is Garissa not being launched and cleared the same way that Garissa of Turkana was cleared and launched? Who is marginalizing us? Who is interested in pushing Garissa aside? These are the hard questions that beg for answers.
The governor was speaking at a Garissa hotel when he opened the stakeholders consultative forum for the Shirika Plan. The Shirika Plan that was prepared using a multi-stakeholder consultative approach is a multi-year plan by the national government to promote the socio-economic inclusion of refugees by transforming camps into integrated settlements.
We know that refugees that we host within our borders can be a resource. Majority of them are young people who are active, they are educated, they bring with them certain skills. Some they have acquired in our country, some they bring from their countries of origin. So we believe that we can harness this resource that we have within our borders from the refugees so that they can also be able to contribute to the socio-economic development of our country.
Kenya remains one of the biggest refugee hosting countries in Africa, with the refugees and asylum seekers in Dadaab Camp, Kakuma Camp and Kalobeyeye Settlement, among others. Reporting for the Muslim Insight, my name is Aban Shihemi.
Thank you for that report, Abba. Now moving on, gender-based violence is often seen as a problem that only affects women and girls. However, a report indicates that men also are the victims of gender-based violence, either physical or sexual violence by an intimate partner. In an interview with the Muslim Insight, Idris Nyaboga, a senior resident Qadi at the Kericho Qadi's Court, has called on the Muslims to utilize the Qadi's office and report cases of domestic violence. Our reporter Hassan Mohammed has the details.
Kuja usikia huyu anasema nini hapa, atunasema nini ati amepigwa na bibi, so they will laugh at.
During an interview with Idris Nyaboga, senior resident Qadi attached to Kericho Qadi's Court, he says though men have been seen as perpetrators of violence against women, the narrative has changed and men are now abused daily by their spouses.
Gender-based violence, most of the time, it happens from the male part. Many of the cases we have been reported, we find that the husband assaulted the wife. Some years ago, from maybe several years ago, the situation is just like it's changing. The situation has, and it has become now that the female are the ones who are assaulting the men.
According to Idris, most men fear to come out and report cases of abuse from their spouses out of shame and the perceptions of the society.
Society, men are believed to be superior, they are the heads of the family, you see? That is something which is believed that a man should be strong, is the head of the family. So, assuming that the father or an husband has been assaulted or slapped by the wife or done something, so most of the time they will not report because it is a shame. You see? Assuming that an husband or the father has gone to the police station to report that the wife has hit him with something or has slapped her, you see at the OB, they will laugh. Kuja usikia huyu anasema nini hapa, atunasema nini ati amepigwa na bibi, so they will laugh at you, you see? So men are discouraged from reporting these cases. You see, because so what is the result? So men have remained silent. They are dying slowly.
Now the fear of Nyaboga is that if men do not report such cases, many of them will remain victimized and even killed by their spouses.
We are equal. According to our Constitution 2010, we are all equal. So there is nothing like that. Men, no, you cannot report. If you don't report, we remain. The women will kill their husbands. We've had cases. Why? In a family setup which has these challenges, most of the time they don't perform well in their education.
And now Qadi Nyaboga has already taken a step to travel mosque to mosque every Friday sermon to create awareness and importance of using Qadi's court and call upon religious leaders, imams to have a forum in mosque and even through media to educate the society importance of having Qadi's court and report abuse cases.
Gender-based violence is a human rights violation and a crime against all gender, but for men, it will still remain a silent crisis in the society. Hassan Mohammed, Horizon TV.
Thank you, Hassan Mohammed, for that report. Now that brings us to the end of our first part of the show. We're going to go on a short break, but we're coming back with a review of today's Friday Bulletin.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation. Verse of the day.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والذين إذا أنفقوا لم يسرفوا ولم يقتروا وكان بين ذلك قواما. والذين لا يدعون مع الله إلها آخر ولا يقتلون النفس التي حرم الله إلا بالحق ولا يزنون ومن يفعل ذلك يلقى أثاما.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون.
Enyi mlioamini, munapoitwa kuhudhuria swala ya Ijumaa, fanyeni haraka kuikimbilia, muache biashara zenu, hilo ni bora ikiwa mwelewa.
Isikilizeni kwa umakinifu khutba ya Ijumaa
ili uzidi kujenga imani yako na kupata faida nyingi ya siku hii.
Coming to you every Friday from Jamia Mosque, Nairobi.
Live on Horizon TV.
Kuna faida gani twapata tukimjua Mtume sallallahu alaihi wasallam,
nabii mwenye ushawishi mkubwa duniani?
Tukizikwa tukitiwa kaburini, tutaulizwa haya maswali matatu: man rabbuk, ma dinuk, man nabiyuk.
Sheikh Jamaluddin anakupa simulizi.
Huwezi kumpenda mtu usiyemjua
na kutambua sunna zake,
lakini ukimjua na ukimtambua Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, mapenzi yako yatazidi.
Ufahamu Rasulullah, familia na maswahaba wake. Tazama sira ya Mtume kila Jumatatu saa 1 jioni kwenye Horizon TV.
Uislamu ni dini yenye mpangilio ulio kamili na taratibu zake humpa fursa kila mja kuifahamu na kuelewa.
Muislamu yoyote lazima achukue jukumu la kuifahamu dini yake, kuanzia kwenye shahada, ashhadu, nakiri kwa moyo,
kisha usafi wa kimwili.
Hapo ndipo huanza safari ya kumwabudu Mola wake.
Usikose kujiunga nasi kila siku ya Jumamosi live kwenye kipindi Ufahamu Uislamu, ili ujifunze mengi usiyojua kutoka Horizon TV.
Abu Najma with Kids is where all kids come for stories.
Our story is about the Arab then.
Stories that educate.
What do we call this in Arabic? Boys. 3,000 for boys. Clap for boys.
Stories of Din and Dunya.
A camel tells the horse, "Hey, I am strong. I can go very far away." And the horse says, "I am faster than you." And they fight.
And making it more fun, we introduce.
Okay, what's my name? Najma. So it's Najma with the
more fun facts.
Rice is baris and baris is rice. Rice is baris and baris is rice.
Come learn and enjoy.
Muharram. And then Safar, Rabiul Awwal, Rabiul Thani. These are the months in Islam.
Join us on Abu Najma with Kids every Monday at 4 p.m. only on Horizon TV.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Horizon TV. We're back after a short break with a review of today's Friday Bulletin. Joining me in studio is Sheikh Salim Charo. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, shukran.
And you're ready to review the Friday Bulletin?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Alhamdulillah. And just for anyone who's watching, the top story on today's Friday Bulletin, the front page, is Muslims included in working group for 2/3 gender rule. Sheikh, and I know this was also discussed last week, and you are aware of it, because we talked on the side with you, alhamdulillah.
Sure, yes.
I know that it's been whistleblowed or announced by NAMLEF. They're the ones who brought this issue into light, and it's very sad that we have to make noise to get included in this.
It's very sad, as you've said, because you know, it's a constitutional requirement, and you know, this is where the issue of inclusivity comes in. But when we get to a point where we have to remind, you know, people in charge to, you know, to do some of the things that they know that are within their mandate, you know, it's also becomes a bigger problem. So, and the issue of 2/3 gender rule, you remember during some of the time during Uhuru's tenure, you remember Maraga, you know, had come up with he was suggesting that what do we say, that the parliament should come to an end because they had failed to to enact this law, and it brought a lot of problems between the judiciary and the president at the time. But now we've seen at least it's a step, but the way it's being carried on, it was a problem, and they had to be reminded. And looking at at that appointment, it had certain communities, the structure of how these communities are put there, and forgetting some of the communities in the country, because if you want, because when you talk of inclusivity, we want everyone to take part and to be part of what they say the national cake. And if we choose now to sideline and marginalize some other communities, it tells you, what happens, because other thing that they will have considered are the marginalized communities. Look at the communities in the ASAL areas. Look at the communities that, where women are even not given that opportunity, you know, to do some of these things.
Yes.
You know, this should have been the priority of the CS, but all in all, at least we have a number of representation of
Yes.
number one Muslims, yeah, and a few more.
Yes, alhamdulillah. Sheikh, and just to move on to the next story, it's all about the Landis Mosque, which has been declared a national monument. To anyone who's listening, the Landis Mosque is a mosque in Kenya, among the first mosques built in Kenya that has a very, very rich history. And I know that you would love to touch on this as well and just educate people on how important is Landis Mosque to the Muslim community in Kenya.
Yeah, this shows you know, how much Muslims have contributed to the development of this country.
Yeah.
Because number one, what we are taught about the railway line from Mombasa to Kampala, you know, it shows the contribution, because even the Mombasa highway, just from Mombasa to, you know, you'll find there are so many mosques along the highway, and also along the railway line. And it shows how much Muslims have contributed, but also it also runs back centuries back, which at some point, you know, we tend to either ignore and not, you know, we don't want to maybe to show that there was contribution by Muslims in this country, because you'll find a lot of things, you know, when we talk of judiciary, was there even pre-colonial, even before the colonialists, you know, came to this country. When you talk of education system, we had the madrasas, you know, running even before the white man came to this country. And now we are talking of Landis Mosque, but it's not only Landis Mosque. You'll see along the Mombasa highway, you'll see a lot of mosques which were constructed during those years, and there are many more. This is only that simply because it's it is also within the CBD, but I believe if we continue like this, we are going to find that there are more of this. There are so many monuments which were as a result, you know, that were you know, as a result of the contribution that was made by Muslims.
And just as you said, the Landis Mosque is, and this story is just one of many that paints a picture of the contributions Muslims have taken in this country. It shows us that Muslims have been here for a very long time. They have brought about a lot of development in this country, and it's very, very nice that Landis Mosque has been one of the mosques that have been declared a national monument. And Sheikh, just to move on to the second page of today's Friday Bulletin, the Nubian community is receiving their title deeds, the Nubian community in Kibos. And this finally is putting an end to a very, very long and very uncertain issue that has been hindering the Nubian community. What do you have to say about this, Sheikh?
I think this is also one of the good news that we can say that here we are looking at Nubian community, but it's also these are Muslims also, and the contribution they've also made to this country, and by the issuance of the title deeds, it's also a good sign that now at least we can see the government is being considerate of its people, and you know, the marginalization and you know, sidelining of certain communities at least is coming to an end. And you know, most of the problems that we face in this country, initially it's about land. Generally, the problems that people face, you know, the historical injustices and so on, it's about land. And that's why you know, the whole Mau Mau thing, it was about land. And also generally, when we also talk of some of these, you know, some evictions which are illegal by certain individuals and people who pose as, you know, some institutions and so on. But I think it's a good sign, and many others need to be also needs to be looked into, because we also have a lot of land cases which are still not being looked into. I think the National Land Commission needs also to consider other places where they are the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just I'm seeing that Gertrude Nguku, who's the vice chairperson of the National Lands Commission, she's quoting and she's saying every Kenyan has a right to ownership of land, and for the Nubian community, they must not be denied what is legally theirs. And Sheikh, as we welcome this very, very good news, it clearly tells us that this may be an issue for the Nubians in Kibos, but we don't know how many communities are also going through that. This is something that it sheds light on an issue that is all over across the country. Sheikh, now we're moving on to the Soha host luncheon for the Chief Qadi. It calls for collaboration, and I know that it's been a month in or so or more, the Chief Qadi.
Almost a month.
Yes, yeah. And alhamdulillah, it's been interesting to see him interact with the community, go from different places while he's interacting with the community. And this also tells us as Muslims that we have found a Qadi who is for the community. I mean, I don't know if you've been catching his lives on, was it Facebook?
Facebook.
Yes.
In fact, he's my friend on Facebook.
Yes.
I just send a request,
yes.
and
he follows back.
and he follows back. Oh,
yes.
mashallah, that's very interesting.
Yes.
I think this it's a new dawn.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Chief Qadi.
Yes.
Because from when he was pronounced as the Chief Qadi, the interaction that he has been having and the engagements with the Muslim leaders and communities.
Yes.
It's something that we've never experienced, we've never seen before. And it's a good sign because what we've known in the past, there've been a bit of divisions and,
yes.
People trying to, but he has not shown any of that.
Yeah.
He has interacted with each and every Muslim and from every area. So, and I think it's very important, that he's showing leadership. And he's showing that he's a leader of all Muslims,
yes,
despite where they come from.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's very nice, especially when he's interacting with the community, not just face to face, but he's also engaging with them on his social media.
On social
networks.
media,
yes. And now people can come with their questions and interact with him. And this clearly says that, alhamdulillah, we are with him, we stand with him, we support him, inshallah, and until his tenure is over, inshallah, he will have our support.
We pray for him,
yes.
that may Allah give him, thabat,
yes.
make him steadfast, and may he also guide him in his decisions also, and may he also give him energy and that zeal to continue also working and engaging with the Muslim community. Yeah.
Sheikh, and I think that takes us to a topic that I want us to focus on now. The financial rights of women in Islam. And I know that Islam is one of the, I don't want to say only, but it is one of the religions that has provided security for Muslim women. Islam has left no stone unturned, and we're going to be discussing this when it comes to financial rights of the women now. Sheikh, I want you to take us through, and I see that it's talking about being given financial security compared to men. What do you have to say about this, Sheikh?
Yeah, that's very true, what you've said, because in many communities and also in other faiths, women until recently, that's when they've come up with, they've come up with some ways of saying that they assure that women now can own property and they have rights of finances and so on and so on, and they've come out very loud, but they forget that this is one of the things that Islam had taught us before during the time of the Prophet, and because you can see that a Muslim woman can inherit from close family members, from the father, mother, siblings, and so on, and also the dowry that is given to the Muslim lady, that's hers, and she has every right to do whatever she wants with it. And there are so many channels where she can, she has that right to finances. And also looking at Khadija radiallahu anha, she was a businesswoman, yes. And some other wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they used to be businesswomen, and Islam does not deny any woman, to work or also to indulge in business activities, but as long as it's within the Islamic teachings and Sharia. So generally they've been given these rights, and they shouldn't be denied. It's only that some of our communities, or maybe some men, maybe based on their communities, they just want to they don't want to give women that opportunity, or maybe because women are in times where they say women are good in what they do, because they're good in what they do. So there are men who who don't want to give women that opportunity. Yes. So, and this is what brings in what people now sees and translate it as that Islam suppresses women. Yes. But that's not the case.
It's very, very true. And for anyone who's watching and is able to get themselves a copy of today's Friday Bulletin, they'll find this in detail, alhamdulillah, in our women segment on the Friday Bulletin. Now, just moving on to a very touching and heartwarming story, Sheikh. And this is about the Muslim Education and Welfare Association. They're transforming street children's lives, which is very commendable, Sheikh. And I know that when we do charity, we visit orphanages, we do a lot of sadaqah here and there. Street children are not mostly involved in a lot of the charities that are taken, and alhamdulillah, such an Islamic organization, I know that you can agree with me, it's very heartwarming. What do you think?
Yeah, this is also one of noble, activities that are carried by our brothers from Mewa, because when a person or a family gets to a point where they are homeless and they live in the street, that's the worst thing that can happen to a human being. And when it gets to that point, this is where we start asking ourselves, where are Muslim brothers and sisters? Because this is also one of the human rights. When we look also at the Constitution, this is one of the rights that, as a human being, you need to have a shelter, a place to call home. And, when we get to that point, it's also, we get to a point where we start questioning, our humanity. And it gets even worse when, we look at these people as Muslim brothers and sisters. So it's a very noble initiative by Mewa, where they get to, bring them back and give them, a honorable way of living, by giving them home, and by also rehabilitating them, and for the children, and taking them back to school and so on. It's a very noble initiative that should be commended, and as Muslims, we need to support them to ensure that no one sleeps outside.
Yes. Yeah. And I love how you started it off with just put yourself in, that thought process of you lose everything to a point whereby you have no shelter, and now you're on the streets, and it's a very sad situation, if I may say. And alhamdulillah, when you see such organizations come out and try and support street families and children, it's something that we commend, and we ask people to continue and probably look at them and enumerate them as they go. And now, Sheikh, to the final topic of discussion, and this is a very, I don't want to say controversial, but it's a story, it's been in the news, but alhamdulillah, now we get to tackle it here with you on the Muslim Insight. Jamia Mosque officials have been summoned over Adhan. the Al Damaravin ward administrator, he's responding to complaints about excessive noise pollution. The residents have said that the mosques have been very noisy, and I know, as somebody who is an Islamic scholar, I know that there are ways that this can both groups can come and sit down and find solutions that would be better for each individual.
I don't know how to term it, just the same way, because there have been so much interventions. And the most recent one by the government, we have a task force on how to engage the religious organization and institutions.
Yes.
And I think if that's the approach the national government took, and this was immediately after Shakahola, you can see the caution that the national government took when it came to such matters. It did not want to be seen as if it's for or against, but they just let the religious leaders to decide for themselves. So for a politician, this is a county appointee to involve himself in such matters.
Yes.
This is very, heartbreaking, because this is overstepping his mandate.
Yes.
This is not his responsibility. And if we were to speak, the adhan, the longest adhan that can take is 5 minutes.
Yes.
And for the prayers, the longest can take is 10 minutes.
Yes.
And maybe for Jumu'ah an hour, and maybe for during Ramadan, we can have also an hour for Qiyam and Salatu Tarawih. But if I am to speak also, we have some of our brothers and sisters from different faith, where their services, it's a whole, okay, I don't want to use the word chaotic, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
And I don't know whether they have such people in from this area.
Yes.
But I really know we do have interfaith. We do have interfaith forums in nationally, and we also have within the counties, and trickling down that way. So I think if there was any issue of concern, I think the best way would have been directed to any interfaith forum. So, and for them to sit down and discuss about this matter amicably. But for such a person, I think this personally, I think this is a person who was maybe looking for I don't know, maybe looking for attention and so on and so forth, because there's no way you can just directly address to mosques only from that area. And you wonder, don't they have temples around, or they have churches around? And this is very, it's not that controversial, but I think this person was looking for problems. But I believe what I know, there are at least there are something going on. And well, let's hope for the best. And but I would like to call upon politicians to stay away from these matters. These are not their areas of jurisdiction. They should stay away. The other day I was on certain matter. I was talking to a staff from Nairobi County in regards to something, and he told me if that's a mosque, there's nothing we can do as a county when it comes to certain matters. So he told me, you can go ahead as long as I am aware of what's happening. So I don't know now where this person was coming from. Thank you.
It's very interesting, Sheikh, because also reading that while he was issuing the directives, he remained silent when it came to churches and entertainment areas within the community, which have been also causing many disturbances. And it's very unfortunate that it's not just one mosque that has been issued with this, has been summoned rather. We have Jamia Mosque in El Damaravin town, Al-Aqsa Mosque in Kemelilo, Masjid Noor and Markas Tawheed, both in Milimani in El Damaravin. And it's very, very sad because Sheikh, when you come and you call mosques over and you're claiming that they're making noise. And as you've mentioned, it's 5 times a day is the adhan, if you actually think about it. And for anyone who's lived within the Muslim community, there's not a lot of disturbances that mosques...
And there's something that he's losing, because I think even the ones who launched these complaints, I think they should be very lazy people, because I live in a place where when adhan, when there is no light and maybe the adhan fails to be made, you know, they come to the mosque and ask what happened today, because the adhan is the one that wakes me up. You know, and you wonder someone complaining of noise.
At 5:30 in the morning, you're complaining that there's noises, and that should be an indication that asubuhi imefika, Sheikh. It's very, very sad, because there are ways that you could sit down and talk about this.
And the person is not from Nema. You know, you also wonder. We have, you know, matatus making very loud music. We have clubs. We have, you know, all sorts of noise. Even they themselves are politicians. They know the noise that they've been making around. So, and, you know, Allah Mustaan.
Yeah, and inshallah that is a topic or something that is going to be solved as soon as possible. And Sheikh, just to finish it up, if a mosque, there are situations where mosques have been issued with the same, and alhamdulillah they found different amicable solutions. One of them has always been the outside speakers would not be used, but the inside speakers would be used. Let's say if it's Isha Salah or Maghrib Salah, and alhamdulillah, I think one of the ways that we can also invite non-Muslims is always, we should always open the mosques so that, you know, they can come learn about Islam, inshallah, and this hitches would not be there anymore.
I think those are not, I think from this, you know, approach, you know, it's a clear indication this person is not open for anything. Because we have everywhere you go, there is interfaith forum. So, and you wonder, you know, how this person, you know, the level of thinking, you know, because this, I assume this is an educated person. And also I would like to take a radical, you know, approach on the same, because that's the approach they decided to use. Because why should we, you know, switch off the internal speaker, you know, switch on internal speakers, and we leave the external speakers only for adhan. And yet our brothers and sisters use, when you go there on Sundays, on Saturdays, and, you know, and sometimes when they have night prayers, you know, all over it's, you know, and you hear everything. So I don't see any need that we should switch off our external speakers for 10 minutes prayer. And because if you live in those residential areas, our brothers, you know, they worship freely the whole day, you know, from 7 to, you know, even until 4, you know, on most of Sundays. And, you know, you will hear this one's here and this one's there. So there's no way we put on the internal speakers, because there's freedom of worship. You know, let them, that's how they see that, you know, they devote to, you know, to the divine. And this is how we devote ourselves. So why should we restrict us on how we devote, on how we worship, and yet others, you know, use other ways?
Very, very good, Sheikh. And I think that conversation brings us to the end of our show, unless you'd like to add anything briefly, inshallah, on any of the stories that have been there.
So it's only, there's that part in the bulletin where the heart-touching recitation of Holy Quran by a little boy in Kibra, the 3-year-old. Okay, I did not see that, even though I was aware there was a Quran competition in Kibra. But this is also, you know, may Allah, you know, reward the parents and the teacher.
You can see his picture on the Friday bulletin.
Mashallah, mashallah.
3 years is a very young age.
You know, 3 years is a very young age, and if you know, you can set out time and teach your child, because most of our children are singing, you know, at this age. They are singing, you know, they are, you know, they are cursing and so on. Because, but you know, these parents have chosen to, you know, to teach their children Quran. So I think this is also one of the, you know, encouraging, especially to parents.
Alhamdulillah. And Sheikh, thank you so much for reviewing the Friday bulletin. It's always
it's been my pleasure, you know.
Yes, Alhamdulillah. And I guess that brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Horizon TV. Until next time, ma'as-salam.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation. Verse of the day.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
والذين إذا أنفقوا لم يسرفوا ولم يقتروا وكان بين ذلك قواما. والذين لا يدعون مع الله إلها آخر ولا يقتلون النفس التي حرم الله إلا بالحق ولا يزنون ومن يفعل ذلك يلقى أثاما.